Hello everyone, Randy Harrington here. I'm going to start off this video by showing you a screen capture from the video that I'm going to be sharing with you guys where we captured a juvenile in a field at the 400. We had Dan Nedrolo come in from Michigan. He is a biologist and he joined us there. I believe it was 2019. So he drove down 12 hours from Michigan and joined us there. And within a matter of maybe 45 minutes to an hour, we captured what we believe was a juvenile Bigfoot on thermal camera. So I'm going to give you an overview of the area all of this took place in so you can get a good look at it. And it starts with a Google map picture of the flats to the left there and the creek going to the right. So let's get a little closer. And that little yellow X is where the base camp is located. And you can see a little yellow dot to the left, out where the mud flats start to begin, where the opening begins. That's where this took place in relation to the campsite. So here's a much closer view, and you can see that four-wheeler trail going through the middle of that field. That goes from our base camp, or by our base camp, out to the mudflats area. So here's a red trail going by the base camp, and you can see the yellow figures out there. So there's the base camp in white, and the red trail shows where we were heading out towards the mudflats. Now, the yellow figures that I have drawn out there, that's us standing on the trail looking south, and that's the figure we caught in the field. Now, the lower little figures there was what turns out to be the probable mother and the other sibling, but we didn't know it at the time. At the time, all we know is what we saw, and here's the video of what we saw. When I was walking out into the flats, things were starting to open up. I looked off to my left, which was south, and I saw a little heat signature, just a little round white heat signature over in the brush. And so I just started watching it, and I told the guys that what I saw. So we all kind of started watching it. We didn't know what it was at the time, and we thought more than likely it would be just a regular animal. So what we do is we just watch it. And as I was watching it, you will see I edited some of the time out because it was a very long time. But here you will see where it's just observing us. Then its head drops completely down and goes out of view. So it goes into hiding mode. There it goes. You can see it move very slowly. This whole process was very slowly, and we were facing it at the time, so it was a slow descent. And it was at that moment that I explained to Shane that that's exactly what I saw in 2013 at Bennett Springs when caught a juvenile that had the same behaviors. So that's the moment I knew it was a Bigfoot. And so we kind of tried to figure out what we were going to do, and I edited some time out before Shane heads out there in that direction. But Shane decides to go ahead and go on out there. So here he starts to head out there, and I will occasionally put an arrow where the head is, and you will see its behavior. As he starts to approach, it raises up to look at him, and it shows a lot more of its head as he's getting closer. As you can tell, its nervousness. You can also watch how fast it drops down as he steps closer. It drops very quickly. So at that point, I was trying to explain to him what it was doing so that he could be aware of its behavior, because he couldn't see it yet. See how fast it dropped? He got to a point where it was starting to get very nervous. So at this point, Shane is out there maybe halfway, and I have lost track of the creature in the grass, but I kind of knew where it was. So I was trying to keep him informed with the way it was behaving. See, there it is bringing its head back up to look at him. So we were all nervous. We didn't know it was a juvenile at the time. So Shane, being very nervous, was just trying to observe and not be too much of a threat. And he eventually comes back. So, we thought we were pushing things pretty hard, didn't quite know what to do, had never really been in this position before. So, we kind of withdrew back to the trail where myself and Dan Nedrolo was standing. And so you'll see Shane retreat back to us here in a moment. You'll watch when Shane starts to come back to us on the trail that it again raises its head. See how fast it raises its head once Shane turned his back to it and started coming back to us. It raised its head up to look at him. So we stand there on the trail talking about it for a while, trying to decide what to do. And so I guess we came to the decision that Shane was going to go ahead and head back out there. And confidence, it went from being very nervous to his confidence came back now that he was back to the safety of being on the trail with us. And so he's again headed back in that direction. But this time he went beyond where he was before. He went a little further, which got him much closer to the subject than the first time. So here he goes, and he's and the head is already sticking back up because it sees him coming in that direction. And it's, oh, did you see how fast it dropped? It dropped very quickly when he broke that plane of, there was probably a line where it registered as something to be worried about. Well, he crossed that line, and so the head dropped very, very fast. So it's in hiding mode right now. So it's laying prone in the grass, and this is one of the first times that Shane sees it with his flashlight, looking at him through the grass, and he's explaining it to us. And I believe his exact words were, "Oh my God, it's looking at me. I see it through the grass." So you can imagine the critter. And here's a daytime shot of where it would be in the grass the next day. So we actually retreat, and then we do the thermal investigation the next day. So here's the investigation from the next day. So here's Shane in the same spot in the grass where the body was laying, popping his head up, giving us reference. So here's an arrow showing Shane standing up so that I could see where he was at. And then he gets down in the brush where the body imprint was found in the grass. And so that's where he pokes his head up, where the original subject was laying in the grass, and stuck its head up.
So right here is where the subject was last night. It was laying down here, and it would pop its head up right here. You can see the guys. So it was laying on its belly. It would pop its head up, and this is where we were catching it right here. You see those? The guys are about 100 feet away. That is exactly where the floor camera was. So we literally filmed the subject here, laying on its belly. It would drop down, You see how thick all this stuff is right here. It would pop its head up and look at us. I got within about 7 to 8 feet out in front of the subject here. Craziness. So here's where the subject was. As you can see, everything is very, very matted down. This wall of weeds and those small trees there were blocking the thermal view. So we were just catching the head popping up. So the head was right up here. This is where I actually got to look at it. And its body was laying this away. And the reason I am pretty positive of that is because I shined the flashlight. If its body was laying, I was right here. If the body was laying this away, I would have seen the body. So that means that the body was laying this away. And this right here actually is more confirmation. It was actually laying on this. This was broken, and you can see that's fresh. So it actually laid down on this, compressed it down, and broke this. See right there? When we got back here, this was literally laying right here, just above that.
Look at those thorn tips.
Yeah, these are. These are thorns.
Could there any way be possible that he left any skin or anything on those thorns?
I'm not seeing anything, but there's some right up here too. I'm going to check. Look at that thorn. Big baby. So this is where the subject was. They actually laid on this and broke it. Very cool. So we're going to look around for tracks back here behind us, back in this direction, and see if we can't find exactly where it possibly came in.
Or where the big one was standing.
Yeah, there was a rock thrown. So here's the area. I'll come back up here and film this real quick. I was standing right here, and right there is the clump of grass that it was behind. So at one point I was going to try to move to my left and come around this side with the hopes of seeing its legs with the flashlight. And as I took with my left leg, I took one step this way, I believe, and at that point the one that was laying down, I believe, clacked its teeth together, and then a rock came from back here and literally landed right beside me. And at that point, that's when we decided that good enough was good enough. We backed out and let it be. Alright, so we are behind where we caught the subject last night, looking for tracks, and here's our first possible track. Right here is the actual heel. It goes up right here. Possible toes. It comes down here. So right there, that looks like the 12 to me. So I'm gonna mark it and come back. We're gonna keep looking. There's another possible in front of it, but literally it's too close to be a step, and it looks smaller, so we may have two coming through here possibly. There's Chris. You have to be really careful coming back through here. It's easy to miss a track or a good compression that'll lead you to tracks. And we're pretty sure this thing belly crawled out. Huh?
Boom, boom, boom. 3 toes. Going that way.
There's another possible compression. If you want to scan that direction, Chris, I'm going to keep going through back here just to make sure we don't miss anything. So here is possible 12-inch track. Stops right here.
Yep.
You can see the heel. Toes up here in the front.
Nice.
So 12-inch track, I would expect this to be about 5 to 5.5 inches wide. We'll give that a look. And 5.5.
There you go.
Just as we expect. So we think this is the adult female. Possibly we think the adults may be a young couple, fairly young, not super young because they have 2 juveniles with them. But if they belong to them with 12-inch tracks and 15-inch tracks, you know, it kind of tells me that the female isn't that old, having 12-inch tracks. So it's coming together. We're finding things that we expect to find, and everything's staying within the perimeters of all the previous evidence. So looking good. Go.
Well, this is the same procedure that we use all the time, and that is where, as you're moving in somewhere, you'll stop every so often and just scan. And this was no different than any of the hundreds of other times that we did the same thing. It's just that this time you see a heat signature and you have to say, what is that? And it was just a heat signature. If we spent a lot of time looking at it thinking it could possibly be a deer. It wasn't moving any different. It wasn't really trying to hide itself or anything until Shane started coming towards it, and then it dropped. So that's when you can start getting excited and thinking that, well, that's what it is, because it wasn't revealing itself like most animals do. They will reveal themselves at some point where you can easily identify them, even with thermal. This one wasn't, and so it didn't take long for us to realize it was what we thought it was, and Shane moved on in on it, and what happened happened.
And the amazing thing for me is you come in, you walk in, boom, it happens. It happens quick. That might be the only time it happens in an entire year for a lot of people. In this case, it's a repeat situation, which is awesome because you get repeat behavior, which pretty much substantially verifies the likelihood of it may be what you think it is. Now with Shane going in and seeing it, that there's the verification. What's the deal? The slow rise, the slow drop down to a belly crawl. And for those who aren't even aware that they belly crawl, they do.
For sure. So Dan, just a guesstimation, how long had you been on the property with us when this happened?
Not long. My time guesstimate factor is a little fuzzed from the drive of 12 plus hours, but we're looking at an initial hour or so.
And that includes y'all coming up and getting me up there in the field.
Right,
yeah,
right.
I mean, we just got there and mulled around a little bit. Next thing you know, yeah, let's take a walk. Let's hit the lake. And then Randy making the stops from time to time, just taking a swirl to check out local possible hiding places. I'll just say sweet. It worked.
Awesome. Nice.
Okay, at this point, I want to give some afterthoughts about this whole evening and investigation. When this first happened, we didn't even know what size it was. Well, we didn't know it was a Bigfoot until Shane got out there and saw it looking at him through the grass. So you can understand the nervousness at that point. But here's the field where the campsite was located, and you're going to see that we also did not know what led up to us capturing them. We had something at our table at the campsite as we were approaching our camp, and they left. We didn't know this until we heard it on an audio from that we had left on the table. And you can check out my video where we think a juvenile was messing around on our table. This happened that night. With something going through the boxes on our table. So they left our campsite as we were just 100 or so yards away coming towards camp. So that's the direction that they must have went, because we captured them on thermal further down that trail. So the trail shows down there where the yellow figures are. That's us standing on the trail looking south, where we caught the little one laying in the grass. Now, so you're going to see an arrow well, no, not an arrow, but the little one's laying in the grass, and then you've got the two figures further back in the brush south from there. That's where the rock came from that almost hit Shane. And the footprint investigation showed that it was the mother and the other sibling. So we've got that going for us. And why they were separated, I don't know, but it clearly dropped on top of a thorn bush, broke the thorn bush, and laid on top of the broken stem on the thorn bush, which was found in the body imprint. So you've got all that going on, and it all was started with them being at our campsite. And so we caught them going along the base of that ridge from our campsite. We learned later that that is probably a travel route coming in that direction because of some other footprints Shane found when he spotted a young one uh, in that area. So now with all the other evidence piled on top of this, that's the direction they came from, the campsite, and we caught them. They must have been, maybe lollygagging because we had come back to camp, and so they were basically maybe watching us at camp. And then as we vacated down that trail towards the mudflats, they started moving east southeast, and then we all converged at that moment on the trail with my thermal camera catching the little one trying to hide and observe us. So they're constantly in observation mode, and all the stars aligned for us that night. And the subsequent investigation, I hope you guys see, lays out almost the way this is being described. This is how it happened. So originally, you can see on that map with an arrow pointing to the northeast or the northwest. Originally on our video, on our Into the 400 video, the thermal that we captured was from about that location looking northwest. There's a creek bottom in there, and there was one in that creek observing us that we caught with the thermal camera. So, that can give you a reference to go back and check that out, to know that was how close the proximity was between those two thermals. And also, you can go back to the YouTube video of the little one going through the stuff on our table, because that happened right prior to this videoing. So that in itself is something you might want to check out, to know that happened before this. But Dan came down from Michigan, uh, and we were all able to enjoy this. It was really fantastic. We haven't had anything like that happen since, so really it just goes to show you how lucky you can be. But it's rare. The mother, interestingly, did not make any noise other than throwing the rock. The little one sounded like it was clacking its teeth as a defensive mechanism or a nervous anxiety mechanism, or it was telling mom that it had enough. That's when the rock came in, but she never made a noise. So we assumed that she possibly had a little one with her that she was going to protect even more than the little one she was throwing a rock at Shane to get him away from. And indeed, later we found some smaller prints. The next couple years later, some 6-inch prints, which means she may have been holding one on her torso. Thank you so much.